welcome to this session of the Making Connections podcast. Obviously, this is part of the virtual conference. And with me, I've got Tom from GWR. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself and your role?
Thanks, Gary. Yes, I'm Tom Pierpoint and I'm Interim Commercial Development Director at Great Western Railway.
And so Great Western has really kind of invested a lot in its franchise over the past 5 years. I mean, we've seen new trains and investment in stations. Perhaps outline the sort of philosophy of GWR and the services that it's provided across its franchise.
We at Great Western take a very long-term approach to operating the franchise. So we do operate services under contract to the DfT, but we are trying to build a railway that meets the needs of our passengers and of the communities that we serve. So over the last 5 years, we've had a huge amount of investment from the wider industry. We've got electrification across the Thames Valley, and the introduction of the Intercity Express trains were really the culmination of that investment. And the timetable changes that we made last December brought forward the biggest change that we've had across the Western in over 40 years. Faster journeys, more capacity, more services as well. So clearly, since we made that change, COVID has happened, and the industry has changed quite a lot in the last 6 months. But we are still providing services, and we're still transporting key workers and other people that need to travel across the network.
Very much. And sort of when you introduced that new sort of fleet of trains, what was the sort of customer feedback that you were getting?
So we've had really good feedback. If you consider, whilst people really like the old high-speed trains, they have been in operation for over 40 years, and the new trains are faster, and they do have more seats. So that big increase in capacity, people able to work comfortably on board, and increase of service frequency at the time was really, really well received.
And as part of the conference, we were starting to hear about kind of the services and the expanded services. And you mentioned the sort of timetable changes, but that sort of North Cotswold line is really the one that GWR service into the county. But you were talking about Kidderminster and the kind of role from Shrub Hill and probably Hereford and beyond. What sort of improvements can we expect on those kind of elements that were planned?
So the North Cotswolds line has seen a huge amount of growth over the last 10 years. If you go back to 2011, there was a huge amount of investment in track redoubling south of Worcestershire, but enabled more and more service improvements to come forward. And since then, the timetable has improved, both in terms of the number of services and the journey times as well. And over the last 2-3 years, we've been working with the North Cotswolds Line Task Force, supporting the aspiration to further improve infrastructure. And the aspiration is to provide 2 trains each hour from Worcester down to London, one of those trains to extend up to Kidderminster, and the other train to go through to Great Malvern and on to Hereford. We should also recognise the services from Worcester down to the south, down to Gloucester, and on to Cheltenham, where we are intending next December, to increase the service frequency on that corridor to 1 train each hour. And that's a really long-held stakeholder aspiration, and a really, really important improvement to serve journeys for getting to work and getting to school, as well as what we're seeing, which is a really emerging market for people going on days out and going on holiday.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, in terms of Worcestershire, its position within the kind of national rail service, I think we felt for a long time that the kind of services and facilities can do quite a lot. And I think some of our MPs have been really behind improvements at both Parkway, but Kidderminster and Bromsgrove stations that are sort of making the whole rail transport and the way that we sort of move people around, both visitors into the county, really important. And how do you see the kind of franchise developing in the sort of, hopefully the COVID crisis doesn't last too much longer? What are your sort of aspirations looking forward for the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, I think we are seeing across the rail industry, we are seeing some change. We don't clearly have the number of business and commuter travellers as we had before COVID, and we are seeing a shift more towards the leisure market. So we're expecting that to continue. We're expecting that trend for people wanting to use our services for days out and going on holiday to continue. And we're also expecting more investment in technologies, so a move away from diesel. The government are talking about about the decarbonisation agenda and the potential for more electrification. And we saw the first hydrogen-powered train on the UK network operate last week as well. I think those technological advancements, alongside the investment in things like the North Cotswolds line, the need for further infrastructure improvements there to both improve performance but also enable more services to run, just mean it's a really exciting time for us, a really exciting time to work with our partners and our stakeholders to make some of these improvements happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's certainly the hydrogen train sounds very exciting, and that move towards zero carbon. I think this is a time when, sort of we can kind of reflect and actually how does the rail industry and every other industry build back after COVID, and not as it was perhaps on the 1st of March 2020. And I think certainly things are going to change, but I definitely think rail's a definite important factor in our strategy and in the county going forward. Final question is, so as of today, you can park up at a station, you can jump on a train. Are the services pretty much in the Timetable pretty much operating as was, or and what are some of the things that you have to do individually to travel?
Yeah, so we've been through a process, obviously, since March, as you say. So the timetable changed, and at one point we were operating around half of the previous timetable, but we're back up to 95% of the timetable that we were operating last year. And obviously we've made some changes, cleaning improvements, and changes to the way that we help our passengers travel. And as a passenger, really, you just need to plan. Make sure that you have a mask when you're on board. And we are continuing to work on more flexible ticketing. So what we've really seen, and it's probably not a surprise, but people are moving more and more towards new ticketing. So having tickets on your phone or barcodes, and that's really accelerated through the COVID period. So that's again more flexible ticketing to go alongside. That is a key part of our and the government's future strategy. But again, yeah, a lot more opportunity there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom, and thanks for your time. It's good to hear those kind of future developments that are happening, both with technology and the new ways that the railway is operating. And I'm sure GWR will be a key stakeholders to the county's economy as we go forward towards our 2040 vision. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.